Tune in and drop out live from the satellite of dreams, echoing directly into your eardrums. With the co-host Murph taking an Antarctic sabbatical, Brogan is playing some old school classics. Joining me today is Steven, a Daydreamcast regular who had just discussed Silent Hill 4 The Room with me. Today we're going to go a little bit outside of The Room, and we're going to talk about the retro-developed classic Metroid Prime. Steven, how are you doing, man?
I'm ready to discuss more experiential 3D games, you know? I mean, The Room wasn't entirely 3D, but the titular room was 3D. So, yeah. By 3D, I mean first person. I'm doing great. It's late. Leave me alone. Some experiential
You know what's
first person.
better than Silent Hill 4 The Room? Resident Evil.
Resident Evil is good. I know that last podcast I was all about Silent Hill. This podcast, I'm all about Resident Evil.
That's the dream. You've been playing catch up a little bit on the road to not. Can you tell me your experiences with that?
Yeah, I have been. So I think on the last podcast I spoke about how I discovered Resident Evil Remake and just absolutely adored it. Just devoured that, played it through a few times, was like, this is a new favourite game of mine, and that was such a wonderful discovery. But seeing as I am being Murph, I must go through the Resident Evil series. So I've been following in Murph's footsteps, and I've been playing through the Resident Evil series. So over the past couple of months, I've played 1 remake, 2 remake, 3 remake, Code Veronica, 0, Revelations 2. Am I missing one? I think that's how they go.
Have you played 7 or 8?
So I'd already played. Okay, I played 8 as part of this, actually.
That's right. That's right. We did.
Yeah. I like 8. I'm actually now starting up 7 again because I didn't like 7 that much when I first played it. So I'm eager to see if I like it more. And I will say that from playing the first hour again, I'm sadly reminding myself of maybe just 7 is not for me. But yeah. We'll see.
I'm secretly a lover of 7, but I think there is a lot of there's a lot of reasons why people wouldn't like it for sure. It's a little gimmicky.
It is.
The enemies aren't very inspired. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also I like it because it feels like a haunted house type thing. It feels very like back to basics in a good way, and like the movie references I like. I don't know. I'm a big sucker for it. But talking about the other ones real quick. I like how much the Revelations ones deal with lore, and it brings characters back that you've missed, that you haven't seen in a long time. I really liked Revelations 1 particularly.
Really? I thought that sucked. I did not like Revelations 1 at all. Did you play it on the 3DS, though?
Well, I played it on the 3DS.
I can imagine that being good, because I played it on the PC, and it seems like a complete waste of time, because it's just that very good controlling shooter when there are loads. And you can tell it's designed for a very small... You know, we talked about Metroid Fusion, I think. We'll talk about this later, where there are points in Fusion where you can go, this was designed for a Game Boy screen, and that's kind of annoying. Yep. And there are points in this where this was designed for a 3DS screen, and therefore the corridors are a bit too tight, the enemies are a bit too big, and they just look silly. And the episodic structure, I think, just sucks, and it makes sense for a handheld in that it keeps pausing, but rather than making a game that fits an episode, they decide to do a go and find keys, explore an area style Resident Evil game that just pauses every now and then. So normally you'd go, I clocked where the shotgun was, I'll come back here later. But you've done 3 episodes since then, and you go, well, I forgot there was a shotgun over there, I didn't know to go that. So you can go loads of places at loads of points, but you never know where to go. So it's weirdly directionless because it's so fragmented. And on the PC, the core of it is just So it's an experience on the PC. I can imagine it being fun on the 3DS because it would be cool to play on the 3DS.
In general, that was a very curious era. And I can see why 7 is the way it is. Because before 7, that was kind of the era where it felt very stale as well. I will say that's the other thing about these games is they're uninspired for lack of better words here.
Definitely.
That being said, how do you feel about the remakes of 2 and 3?
I think the remake of 2 is spectacular. I was really, really taken aback by how much I enjoyed that. It's one of those compulsively replayable. I spoke about this on the Quick Save podcast. I think it's a not very ambitious game in terms of it keeps within a clear scope, but I think it's so good at being unambitious, of it totally understands the constraints it's in and just makes this wonderful little clockwork puzzle box within those constraints where you can work out how all the variables are going to move. So Mr. X can't do that much, for example, but he becomes a cog in this machine. So it's about working out all the cogs and how they turn around. So you manipulate it on a game level, and while it's not that immersive, it's not going to surprise you. I think as a precision-tooled, really satisfying tactical game where you think about running this route 5 times. Should I shoot this zombie? Should I shoot them in the leg? Should I go past? If I kill them now, that'll make it better, but then I go back this way. The level design is really impressive. It builds on the foundations of 2 really cleverly, and it's just a really fun, replayable, superb survival horror game. One of the best. I really loved it.
So I don't know if I've told my Resident Evil 2 opinions to you, Steve.
Oh.
But the original Resident Evil 2 is one of my favorite Resident Evils.
It's an awesome game.
Secretly, I'm a Camilla simp. I don't talk about it a lot. But that being said, I really like how it does. Sometimes what I really look for in a good Resident Evil is pacing.
Yes.
And to me, I really liked Resident Evil 2's pacing and how it goes from horror to action. It feels very graceful. And I think it also threads the needle in a much more streamlined way in the remake. And I will say one of the things that really helps the remake is I think the word is consistency.
Yes.
You look at like Mr. X, and to me, he is the best Resident Evil Predator. And the only word I can have for it is consistent. Because every other Resident Evil Predator, I haven't played 9. But every other one has felt, I don't know the word for it. I would say maybe the only other one that would be comparable would be original Nemesis. But you look at the new remake Nemesis, and it feels limp. Yes. Or it feels too scripted. And you want that spontaneity and the consistency of, he remains a threat. That really appeals to me. And I think in storytelling, they don't cut a lot of corners into remake. I think 3, I'm going to be honest, now that I look back on it, I feel like 3 remake was told because they felt obligated to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that is the biggest complaint against it. I mean, it's still fun, but it is definitely the one where it's like, this is not a 10 out of 10. This is not a mind-blowing experience. This is very disposable, and that should be the opposite of what a Resident Evil 3 remake should be.
Which is interesting, because I like 3 Nemesis quite a lot, but 3 Nemesis has an issue that is shared with the remake, which is 3 Nemesis is handicapped by being built on the tech of 2 and 1 and trying to be a different game that still has to fit into the template of 2. So it is still a room-based exploration game that's masquerading as being very open, and 3 remake is built in the tech of 2 remake, and it keeps getting dragged back into the 2 remake tropes that don't fit in the game very well. So the opening level was a bit of a condensed 2 remake, but it's just not as good. And then as you expand out, you can just feel the game it needs to be does not fit at home in the mechanics of the 2 remake. And some of the best sequences are the more action ones that break out of that. I like when you play as the other character for a while, when you go through and it's more guns blazing. That stuff is cool and works. If they had really built it from the ground up, why 2 Remake is brilliant is, they really thought about that game, how to bring it alive, and it feels like just an amazing modern Resident Evil game that is inspired by 2. 3 is just, we should do that again for Resident Evil 3, and it doesn't feel thought out, cogitated upon, really like... So Mr. X is deployed at the right moments in 2, and he's not deployed at the same moments he's in the original. They know when to put him in, how to disrupt one particular puzzle, and make you just walk around. And there's always about 5 things to do, and that's so clever. In 3, they don't have...
Go ahead.
In 3, they don't have a thing like that to work, and Nemesis just sucks.
Well, let me ask you, do you feel... I feel like 4 remake is in a similar boat, but at the very least, when I leave 4 remake, I think, well, they didn't fuck it up.
Tell me more about 4 remake, because I played the demo. I love Resident Evil 4. It is one of my favourite games, and was my favourite Resident Evil until I played remake. And I played the demo of 4 remake and went, yep, this is Resident Evil 4. I don't need to play this. In fact, I like that Resident Evil 4 felt very specific, and I don't need a different feeling because it's modern now, Resident Evil 4. So what do you think about it?
That product will not convince you otherwise. It is... 4 did not need a remake. Let's just go ahead and say it out like that. You could play Resident Evil 4 today, and if you have complaints about it, I'm not gonna lie, it's on the player. I think it is. Yes, there are some antiquated elements to it now, but really, it is one of the primordial, fundamental, great action games.
Totally.
Especially for the franchise. And it is, like, to me, a 10 out of 10.
Oh, totally.
The remake, it tries to zig occasionally when 4 zagged, but it still wants to be safe. I think the big thing is it's more fluid in animation, and it's got the parry system. There's still an emphasis on combat. It's still basically the same fucking game. Once in a while, they'll try to take it more seriously. There's less B-movie feel to it. Leon still will say a one-liner once in a while, but like, for instance, Lord Salazar or a lot of the other minor characters in the game, they have less color to them. They have less personality.
Yeah, so I was playing Code Veronica, and I was like, there is so much. I don't think Code Veronica is great because it becomes an absolute nightmare of backtracking, and it's very frustrating.
But it has so much personality.
But it's got that campy personality. It's like, this is where Resident Evil 4 came from. Like, there's one problematic as hell bit in Code Veronica, but it's camp in this ridiculous way. I go, oh, this leads to this, and I enjoy this immensely.
Yes, absolutely. And I think 4 Remake just wants to... They wanted this one so bad because, 4 makes so much money or whatever, but I think it also becomes a little bit of a whimper. I don't know. They didn't fuck it up as much as 3 Remake, because I think 3 Remake to me is like... I think 3 is a great game that could be better.
Yeah.
I don't think 4 could be better, and the remake's not better.
Well, the ways that you could make it better are boring to me because they're very, I think of products as optimized products, and I don't think about games that way. Yes, you could rewrite bits of the script to make it slightly better, and I hear that people say like the characters are better, and it's like, but that's so Star Wars Special Edition to me of, okay, well, you could rewrite any game and make it a little bit better, but the original game, the thing that came out, is still more interesting to me as a unique creation, and I like engaging with it and its foibles. I don't need a new script run on it. I'd rather you use that updated script writing kind of standard to make the new game, to make the Resident Evil 9, for example, rather than going, oh, we could make this character less of a damsel. Because I think it's really interesting that Resident Evil 4... Actually, to get to the discourse, the God of War trilogy remake, whatever the hell that's going to be, was announced last week as of recording. And it's led to a conversation about how you're going to remake those games. And that leads to the thing of, just leave them as they are, because they are emblematic of how culture was at that point, and therefore I think should stay that way. And put them out again with disclaimers of, this includes some things that you may find to be misogynistic, because it is, but this was, a product of its time and reflects some of the attitudes at the time. I think that's what you need to do. Like, making Resident Evil a bit nicer to some of the characters is nicer, I guess. But I think it's important that a game came out that had those characterizations and should be engaged on that level.
Yeah. Let me ask you, going into Resident Evil 9.
Yes.
Have you beat Resident Evil 9?
I have beaten both endings of Resident Evil 9.
Oh.
Yes, there are 2 endings. You reload a save at the end and you either fight 2 bosses or you fight 0 bosses. The first ending I did was fight 0 bosses. I thought, well, I could just quit and go, I beat the game. But clearly that was not the real ending.
That's for Steven sometimes. Sometimes you go the path of least resistance.
It's true.
That being said, we were nervous last time around that they put Leon in because they didn't feel like it was safe. And then I have seen in other circles especially before embargo.
Yeah.
That there were some ideas that perhaps that these were two separate games, that
Yeah.
Capcom felt like that putting both games together made a complete vision. What do you think is the real explanation here? What's going on here?
Do you want to know my summarized, just like top level thoughts first on Resident Evil 9?
Let's go for it.
Is
it good?
Fantastic. It's fucking amazing.
There you go. All right.
It's so good. I love it. I mean, I have just finished it, so I'm running high on it at the moment. But it is easily one of my favorites in the franchise. I think it is spectacular. I had such a blast. And it's so invigorated by delving into what's made Resident Evil work in the past and making a modern Resident Evil that is so in tune with the different things the series has been. And it's like if they made 2 Remake and 4 Remake, but they could make a new game this time. So 4 Remake doesn't interest me because I've played that game already. 2 Remake does, because it's bringing ideas from a past generation into modernity. But this is, what if we had the design sensibilities and we built an original game around them and we shoved them together, and it absolutely rules.
I'm not gonna lie either. I see, I go on Reddit and I see some opinions, like first initial impressions, and I see people complain about the gray segments. And
What?
The gray segments are too slow.
What?
They don't, you have to keep going back and forth.
Yeah, it rules.
And you don't have enough ammo.
Yeah, it rules.
And I'm like, what have they played Resident Evil? What happened, Steven? What happened? That sounds exciting to me.
It's so
that
exciting.
Sounds dope as hell.
The grey stuff is phenomenal. I think it does what Resident Evil 7 tried to do for me, but does it much better in terms of vulnerability in an unsafe space. So my one critique, having just played through Revelations 2, which does this twice, and wider Resident Evils, there is a trope in Resident Evil games of how do we create fear? A female child. Female children are weak. And, all right, Grace is not a child, but she is childified by the narrative, and she's made to seem very, very young. So there is this persistent low-level sexism of the series of fear is the result of putting young women in danger, and that young women are vulnerable. So maybe the game would be a bit more impressive if it actually picked a man to be the weak thing for you to feel powerless with. But hey-ho, I think it does good with Grace in the end, and I think she's a cool character, even if it's a bit much how they present at the beginning, because she's so hysterical, but she's supposed to be an FBI agent, and you just have a bit of, I don't know why you're here or how you got this job, this is mad. But whatever.
I get it, yeah.
You get placed into the mansion/RPD surrogate, and Brogan, it's so good. It's exactly what you want it to be. Of here is this laid out path. You keep going across things. You go, I'll be able to get back here later and do something. The zombies are really interesting, and when you're playing as Grace, it's that feeling that I love of I could shoot this zombie now, and that would make it much easier for me. But I don't have that many bullets, and that's going to be a problem. And have you heard about this zombie behaviors thing they've been talking about?
I know that they are different, and I know some general plot points which we won't go into here. But, tell me how they act different.
So there's about 5 or 6 special zombies in this game, and not in a Left 4 Dead way, in a quite emergent way. As in, the pitch is, it's zombies that remember their past lives, as in when, the roles they would as humans, and therefore will do that routine. So you meet this chef zombie, and he is just trying to prepare food, and he will just keep going to his new stations, and that's how you can kite him around. He will ignore you if he can go to get food. You'll meet another zombie that just wants to turn lights on, so if you go switch a light off somewhere else, he will go over to that because he's like a porter, and he will just want to switch that light. Another zombie wants to clean up a mess, and that can get a real problem because there's one power, like an item you can use that explodes a zombie as like a emergency, oh crap, this is going to be an insta-kill. But if you explode that zombie, that other zombie's going to come and just try and clean up that mess and call in other zombies, and that's going to be a problem. So it's got these little emergent behaviours happening, like there's an opera singer that can stun you with the opera sing voice. So
see, I love all of that because what it sounds like to me is, number one, it's creating variety
Yes.
within the enemies and creating memorable experiences. Number two, it's humanizing.
Yes.
These enemies that are otherwise, even though they were once human, a lot of times people don't give a fuck. It's a zombie. Who cares? So like it's giving them these routines and giving them a humanity that hasn't been. That's so cool. That's very neat.
It's really
Good
cool.
take.
And it creates these microcosm experiences. So that chef guy, and the zombies roam in this. They just walk and they'll leave their areas. So they won't go into a safe room. They will if you really kite them, but you have to really work on it. Like you have to pull them and actively want to bring them in. But this chef guy just kept wandering this corridor back and forth, just going like meat, meat, meat. And in that corridor is the one area where you can go to spend coins to get upgrades. And it was just I'm going to have to slowly stealth around him every time because I cannot kill him. And eventually I just went, well, I've got one of these items. I'm going to have to spend it on him. And I'm just going to have to kill him and just take him off the map. So it has that take off the map logic of, should I take this zombie off the map? And then, Brogan, it brings back the Crimson Zombies.
Terrifying. That's so scary.
They're
That's
even
the scariest
worse.
thing I've ever heard of.
They're even worse.
How are they worse?
They're these blister heads. They're like head crab zombies. They go absolutely feral at you. And if you're Grace, you just can't kill them. Because you need to just obliterate their head and they move so fast. I don't quite know what makes them come back. I think it's if you don't kill a zombie by like headshotting it, then it can just come back.
Yeah.
But you as Grace, I just never killed any of them as Grace. So there are a few zombies in that map that are just always in that zone. And if I go into that zone, I'm screwed. And some of those zones have puzzles in them. So it's like, I need to go into this room to put fake organs in a body, but there is an absolutely rampant doctor in here trying to attend to this body because he wants to attend to this body, and now he's gone blister-headed. So it has these things, and there's a big chasing zombie that walks around part of it as well, that you just have to run away from, because it does that thing again. It is an amazing from the ground up what worked in 2 Remake, and it feels so good. The shooting feels amazing. It's proper first-person shooting with aim-down sights this time, not just like slightly pull in. Like 8 didn't feel amazing. Just the recoil on this feels brilliant. The reactions that enemies have of where you shoot them, it feels so dynamic. It's such a satisfying game. So I creeped around this hospital for like 3 hours so slowly as Grace. I was reloading saves, constantly going, I can get through that without losing health. I can get through that without firing a bullet, which I love doing. And then what the game does is it punctuates these levels with Leon, which I'm sure you've heard about.
Yeah, from what I hear, so first of all, it's clear that Leon is more action oriented. Leon is a little bit faster paced, and also Leon's a little bit of a fucking badass. It's also a difference in camera perspective, right? Isn't Grace first person and Leon's third person?
Which you can change, but leave it that
regarding
way.
immersion.
Yes.
That's crazy.
But that also, that sells the idea that Leon is like preternaturally brilliant, that he can like sense around him. So because you can change it to first and third and whatever you want, but it recommends to keeping it this way. And it gives you more control, more visibility that makes you inherently play better as Leon. And that's really, really cool. But what the game does towards the beginning is it puts you through a few sequences. So you crawl around and creep around, shitting yourself as Grace. And then it cuts to Leon and you just destroy. And it's the most cathartic thing. It knows exactly how to do tension, 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 release. So there's one sequence. Yeah. You spend about 3 hours as Grace, and then you go through the same area as Leon, and every zombie you didn't kill is there still, including those blister heads. And I'm just there as Leon, just going, bam, headshot, axe, killed, bam, headshot, axe, killed. Just
that sounds so fun to me because fundamentally, most Resident Evil games, the formula is you're one character. Sometimes you're 2 characters, but it's like another campaign or some shit. And at the start, you're scared, and then by the end of it, that's what you're doing in a lab. You got so many weapons, so much ammo,
exactly.
And you're a badass because you've mastered the game by that point. Dividing these characters and interweaving them allows for them to control the pacing. That sounds so fun.
And the first Leon level is brilliant because you're out on the city streets and it does that amazing badass thing of a virus breaks out in the street and a whole crowd of people runs towards the camera and oh, I'm walking the other way, and it's just you walking gun cocked through this crowd running at you, and it's just so good at just knowing how to make you feel great and then make you feel totally underpowered. And unlike most Resident Evil games, every new area that you go through in this first 2/3 of the game where it goes back and forth is really well designed, really tense. There's 3 main grace areas like a tutorial, the big hospital, and there's this basement level where you're being stalked by this enemy that can't stand light, but it keeps finding ways to get rid of light and go around. You have to do a puzzles that goes on, and it's playing the hits, but not in a Resident Evil 8 kind of goofy way. It's in a, we have refined this down, we know what works, and here's a damn good video game. And that stuff rules.
That's so fun. This is a must play for me.
However,
I'm gonna pick it up in the next few days once my paycheck hits.
However,
so we're fucking in it.
I went to bed last night thinking this would have been a 5 out of 5 game if it had ended where I thought it was going to end. So it builds up to an ending with grace, and it feels like a classic Resident Evil cliffhanger. I'd played about 7 hours and was like, okay, that's a decent 7-hour game, maybe 8 hours because I was spending a lot of time. And then, slight spoilers, it cuts to Leon, and you play a long time just as Leon in a different location. And I went to bed going, I don't know if I like this very much, because I liked Leon as a contrapuntal character. And you're in Raccoon City. It's on the front cover of one of the game things. Like, so you're returning to bombed out Raccoon City.
Not a spoiler, yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll be seeing familiar things, yeah.
And why I would recommend when you play this, Brogan, pause at that point and don't keep on playing, because that made me dislike it slightly. When I came back to it today and played through, I loved it, because I was so used to Leon being, I'm a badass, I don't think, and brain off. And they find a way to make this challenging. Like, it is a sequel, it's a gameplay sequel to Resident Evil 4 remake, basically. And it's not hard, but it is a tactical puzzle combat shooter. And in my mode of, this is when I just go through zombies, and this is when I hide, it was not clicking with me. And then when I played through it today, and it's about a 3-hour section, it's really brilliant. It's different, it's tactical, it's about learning different zombie types and how to respond to them, and then the game just escalates through areas, and I think at the end of it, I just think it's phenomenal. I think it's just such a fun, cleverly designed game. The story is very silly, but I enjoy how silly it is. The boss encounters are great.
It's Resident Evil. Who cares?
And it does a greatest hits of really intelligently. It brings back some old bosses, but there's also a room where you can see the price tag for bosses, which is really funny, because you're in like the Umbrella facility and it tells you that
so
Mr.
it's like
X,
showing you how much a fucking liquor's worth.
yeah, exactly, a liquor, because liquors come in and there's this thing saying, well, no, if we deploy Mr. X, it costs 12 million. You're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I just killed another one of those. Oops. So that rules.
And then you think how much money you cost the corporation, makes you feel good.
It's great.
Just wasting them away.
Oh, what a fantastic video game. It feels amazing. It's like proper, just like linear action games get a bad rap. This is, rather than cinematic, this is a proper crunchy, interesting systems action game, and it's just top drawer what you want from a AAA console experience. It's fantastic. I loved it.
That is exciting as hell.
You might hate it.
I will. Next time it's on, I'll be playing it.
Yeah.
Until then, I've heard this. I keep hearing everyone's into this Mewgenics. What's going on with this? Tell me about this.
Mewgenics is the new game from half of Team Meat, Edmund McMillan and somebody else that he's working with, whom I should know the name, but I don't. Forgive me, dear listener. This was announced in 2012, which you can tell from the title, because the title Mewgenics hits differently in 2012, and now we just go, it was quite when it was announced, and let's not think about it too much in our current reality of when eugenics is actually on the rise in popular discourse, and maybe not as lightly made fun of. But hey-ho. It is a tactics roguelite with cats.
When you say tactics, I'm curious. I'm just taking a guess. I literally have never seen anything about this game.
Oh, cool.
I'm literally just guessing based on the name and the idea that it's a tactics game. Is it like Fire Emblem, where you'll pair people together and have babies, so that way they will fight later, and it's cats?
Yes, but no. The roguelite thing is cool because I finished a run, and when it's got like a structure of you finish an area, and when you finish an area first time you have to go home, and if you go to the next time you then go to the next area, and it's got an act structure. I'm not out of Act 1. I'll tell you why in a bit why I'm not out of Act 1, but we'll save that. But you can't use your characters ever again, so they exist for one run, and then they become retired cats, and they go back to your home. And in your home, your cats may fornicate and produce a new cat, and those new cats, once they're of age, you can take out on new runs, and they have inherited genetic abilities that go through that way. So that's the similarity there. So it's part cat breeding, inbred simulator. You obviously want to avoid that as much as possible, but you can't. And then part, I think it's quite close to Into the Breach, I think, in terms of its tactics. That's maybe the closest I can think of. I don't think it's as tactically brilliant as Into the Breach, but it's really fun in terms of... So are you a Binding of Isaac person?
Yes.
So the cool thing about Isaac is so many different things can happen that spiral out and create really narrative-rich runs, and this is so good at that, of you will just get strange upgrades that cause strange different fusions and new ways of playing that can work against your work for you. Every run is different and fun and exciting and surprises you. If you go, this is going to go very badly, and oh, now this upgrade means that when one of my cats is another cat, this cat can shoot them from over there, and when they shoot, it drops down thorns. And this, I had one cat that if it picked up a coin, it got more powerful, but then it got another upgrade that if it killed someone, it got a coin. So it was just going around just like backstabbing, kill, power, kill, power, kill, power. So you're trying to get all these kind of things of just wild combinations. And it's really satisfying in that way of sometimes you'll get totally screwed and it'll be abysmal, but it's always entertaining and fun, and it feels really dynamic, really clever. It's a really entertaining tactics game where there's enough looseness in the mechanics that you can kind of fumble your way through. But if you did really think about it and you were better than me, you could really play out some very clever strategies, because there is, as well as looseness in the mechanics, there's a really high skill ceiling of possibility.
See, that's very exciting to me. And I always knew, like, especially with Binding of Isaac, that came out around the time roguelikes got really big.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think a lot of things where it's like roguelike imitators, they don't have that appreciation for having each run, even if it's a fucked up run and your RNG's bad. They're memorable because of the variety. It feels spontaneous and emergent at points. And Binding of Isaac did that pretty well. So I'm very excited to see what a tactics game looks like with this style. I'll check it out for sure. It's just been in the backlog.
Yeah, the reason I've stopped playing it is that there was a disappointing discourse around the game, which I'm not going to put any judgment. I am going to get back to it, and I'm not going to judge anyone for continuing to play the game, but it just bummed me out, and it made me... I had the ability to choose not to play it for a while, so I went back to Resident Evil, which is... There's a very... Edmund Macmillan is one of these people that asserts himself as kind of like above politics kind of thing, and that gets really irritating, especially in the current climate, dare I say. And
I mean, if you're looking at Indie Game the Movie, guys,
yes.
Jonathan Blow is 10 times worse. So don't feel bad about the Edmund Macmillan horse.
Yeah, and they're still friends because he's talked about Jonathan Blow, talked to him about this game. So there are a bunch of meows in this game, as in just the cats make meow sounds, and there's a massive voice cast, including Rivers Cuomo does a meow in this game.
Oh.
That's funny. Greg Sestero from The Room, Lloyd Kaufman, that's very funny. Great. Now, I'm not going to go into specifics. There are some really problematic and uncomfortable people on the voice cast list.
Sure.
And as in... that doesn't make sense. there are some people that have ardently spoken out in favor of the genocide of Palestine, next to people who are ardently in favor of a free Palestine, and it looks strange, and it's a wise.
Do you think you just were not really thinking about it for the cameos? They were like, you know, it would be fun if we could get this guy, and then they just did not.
Yes.
Vet properly. Exactly
that. And then Macmillan doubled down on this, and he said that the game is a encapsulation of the internet through this since 2012 when he's making it, and blah blah blah. I'm like, man, that wasn't the internet to me. What part of the internet are you on? Was some of the people just like, one, piss off. And then he also talked about how, I know we live in a world where people get really upset when they hear a meow from someone they disagree with. And I'm like, it's not about that. Stop being weird about it. And it goes back to this point of this crowd where it's like, you know, we're out there offending everybody, only ever ends up offending the progressive side, because no right-wing dick is getting offended by this. And it's so funny to me, and funny in a dark, not actually funny way. These people that say like, you know, we're out there being outrageous. It's never going to alienate the right wing and be pointed in that way. It's not going to use that platform to be interesting and progressive and challenging and actually insulting in a progressive and daring way. It's just this edgelordy kind of like, we put a Zionist in this game and you're going to have to listen to the meow and you'll never know if that's a Zionist meow. And it's like, oh, piss off. Like, why are you weird? Why is this in the game? Just delete it.
And I mean, honestly, it's not that big of a surprise considering the Newgrounds.
That's it. That's
history.
Yeah.
It's that Newgrounds primordial, very 4chan adjacent experience. So I am sure. Yeah, we don't have to keep digging into it. I will still play the game.
I'll go back to it.
I don't think that's enough for me to break.
Totally.
However, I understand the discourse at this point. Thank you for educating.
Yeah, and it just bummed me out, and it was just like I dropped Code Veronica to play this, and I went, you know what? I'm going to play Code Veronica rather than play more Mewgenics, because every time he spoke, it was what a stupid thing to say, what a more stupid thing to say, and I can just not for a while, and I'd rather not. So yeah, so I dropped it. I'll get back to it.
He didn't have to respond the way he did. Too.
No. Yeah. He also said that some people knew and they were okay with it. And then Stephanie Sterling said that she was not aware and she'd asked to be removed from the game. And I think she was. But it's that case of, no, 2 people knew they were sharing a build together. The rest did not know, because like Rivers Cuomo was not going to read through a list of 100 people to go, oh, that one's a Nazi.
Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck who Aaron Hansen, Corpse Husband, and Vinny Vinesauce are. No. He's making another Weezer song.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Which he shouldn't be doing either. So, you know.
Yeah. Look, fuck Rivers Cuomo, to be clear.
Hey, I saw Weezer last year. I mean, I like Weezer, but he should not be making new music. He should only be playing...
Yeah, Pinkerton was the peak. He should have gave up after Pinkerton.
I have like an Onion-style headline in my head since I saw remind me, what year did Pinkerton come out?
Oh, I don't know.
Can we make up a year for this joke?
Sure.
Let's say 97, all right? Can we say that?
Yes.
And my joke is, I'm still workshopping it, is like, die-hard Weezer fans confused when band plays song after 1997.
There you go. That's a good joke. Also, you're not far off. It was 96.
Oh, nice.
Crazy. All right, are you ready for the Variety Minute?
Yeah, let's get varied.
Okay. This week's Variety Minute is Nintendo transitions into 3D. Technically we've done this before, but I don't feel like it was tackled properly in the other ones as well. I think this is a hard nut to crack.
Yeah.
For many reasons. But it's interesting in the context of Metroid Prime, because I think when it goes into 3D, it examines I'm trying to think of how to say this, the franchise's values. And we'll dig into that more when we talk about Metroid Prime. But basically, you have to emphasize different things, you know?
It's, do you make the same game again that is realizing what you were trying to do in 2D, or do you think about some of the key nouns of the game and think about how they would work considering how 3D games work? So on one side there is Zelda, and Ocarina of Time is just 3 Link to the Past in a very reductive way. It's, this is the template, and it goes out. And you could argue that Mario 64 is just 3D Super Mario World, but it isn't really, because a 3D platformer and a 2D platformer are so fundamentally different in terms of what you're doing. Like, because it's the exploration focus of Mario 64 as opposed to, in Mario World you've got secret exits and some variety that way, but it is a very different way of interacting in the world, where 64 is more about joyful, expressive movement as opposed to really precise, colourful platforming.
And even like a Sunshine, which I think wanted to go for organic environments. And what I mean by that is like, if there's a platform that Mario has to jump on, it's a girder because they're building something in near Noki Noki Bay or some shit. I forget the actual Port Harbor is, I think, what I'm talking about. It tries to make a realized space. Yeah. I think realized spaces are much more important in 3D.
Yes.
For that purpose.
So to skew the conversation further, for me, I'm really fascinated now that Nintendo has not just the 2D to 3D jump. They also have, and I can't work out the term for this. This is where Murph would be great, because Murph is so good at encapsulating things. Because it's not just the HD era, but there is something about a second transition that its franchises have to go through. So, for example, you've got 2D Mario, that then becomes 3D Mario, and then I would say Galaxy and Odyssey are an expansion on that again. And the most apparent is 2D Zelda becomes Ocarina of Time, and then Breath of the Wild happens. There is this third evolution that becomes these 3 pivotal points, which brings me to Metroid.
I think there's a lot to unpack with what you're saying.
Okay,
okay, let's take Zelda.
Yeah.
I think there's an element, and like you could also look at Star Fox for this, where Nintendo looks at a franchise and they don't, or at least they didn't back in the day, want to make the same game over and over again. And when they look at it, they're like, what can we do that's different?
Yeah.
I feel like that was happening with Zelda, and I also feel like near the time of Breath of the Wild, and I think just in general, that era, Nintendo was looking at competitors and like actually looking at what they liked out of games. I think there's an essay from somebody, I don't know if it's me or somewhere, where Minecraft was probably one of the most fundamental influences on them.
And Far Cry 2.
Maybe, yeah, in a lot of ways, especially, Far Cry 2 for a lot of the open world genre, period.
But especially Breath of the Wild.
And especially yes, for sure. Where they looked at competitors and they're like, well, let's actually take in criticism and form our games around what is succeeding elsewhere. And especially with a Minecraft, I thought about Minecraft a lot when playing Bonanza, because I just see that the approach now for a lot of this open stuff is non-linear puzzle solving and a sort of open feel, and I don't necessarily know if it's right for every game. But that being said, like, you definitely feel like it's like, oh, you make your own fun, a little toy-like in that sense. But some franchises are more meant for it than others. Zelda did have a founding principle of exploration and adventure. So a free open world where you solve problems in unique ways works for it. It may not work so much in Donkey Kong, and stuff like that is interesting. But to go back to the actual 3D conversation, again, this goes back to values. And when they made Ocarina of Time, they were like, oh, what we wanted to do with Link to the Past,
Yeah.
we can do with fucking cutscenes now, baby.
Yeah.
And so that's what they did. And they just kept doubling down on that until I guess they saw that there was a need to reset or take a step back.
I think it's about looking at the 2D game, and the things about these first Nintendo 2D games, I would say, Super Mario Bros. Aside, is they're so open. So Metroid and the original Legend of Zelda are so light touch. Here's a world, just go out and just find it. And that principle of discovery was then refined down as the games got more proficient. And then the really successful 3D transitions were about, what if we bring back that sense of open, quite scary discovery again, and open that into 3D space. That's why Metroid Prime is so interesting, because it goes, okay, well, what's the core of Metroid? It's actually about exploring an unknown space and the awe of that. And they go, oh, there you go. Well, you've got scanning, and you've got this interlinked thing, and how to make rooms work in a 3D space where they loop back on each other, and that's really satisfying. And biomes come out of that, and that's really satisfying. So it's thinking about these core tenets that were first there, and then going, how can they make sense in a wider scope? And they were so good at that with Zelda eventually. More so now than they were at the beginning, I would say. Though Ocarina of Time is fantastic. But I would say that Breath of the Wild is a more true spiritual successor to The Legend of Zelda than Ocarina of Time is. And Metroid Prime is a really good successor to Metroid.
Yes. We'll unpack that a little bit more later. But yes, I 100% agree with you. I feel like there were some that were built... When you look at the early transitions into 3D, you're like, oh man, Mario Kart is meant to be 3D, man. Like, when you saw it on the Super Nintendo, yes, the Mode 7 is kind of cool, but F-Zero is meant to be in 3D, man.
No, my favourite Mario Kart is Super Mario Kart, which I get mocked for incessantly, and people ask me if I'm joking, but it's just like I like the purity of it. I like just my fun little top-down little karts, and it feels like karts. I like Super Mario Kart. It's a great
They're
game.
Cute. They're very cute. And I also feel like Pokemon forever dragged its fucking heels on. They kept regurgitating the same formats, and then like at some point in time, it's like, well, they felt. I think one of the problems I have with the trends for Pokemon is they'll only change things when they feel obligated to, or they feel like, I don't know if the word's peer pressured or whatever, but like they feel like, oh, I think we need to make 3D models now, or I feel like we need to make this open world now. Maybe it's not peer pressure. Maybe it's them not knowing what else to fucking do.
Do you reckon this comes from the technicality of 3D means something different in video games than being just in 3 dimensions? Street Fighter 4 is a 3D video game, but it is a 2D game. And
yes,
Pokemon are really highly behind a spokesman being like, it's technically 3D, and you go, well, you know that it's not. It's not though, really, is it? It isn't. Like, yes, it is, but it is just the same 2D game with, you've now kind of given me a camera, or you've changed the perspective, but the game is literally the same. This would work as 2D, and it functions in a 2D way. It's not Ocarina of Time. It's not Metroid Prime. It's not Mario 64. You have not taken the parts of this franchise, like Battles, for example, and thought, what would this actually mean in 3D? Though I hear the new one does that, for example, which sounds cool.
Probably. I don't know.
I ain't gonna play that. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's because it's been too long. It's like, I don't care. Like your little diminishing returns of, they go, you can like real time battle Pokemon. I'm like, now? What do you mean now?
Man, I feel like there was some. I'm trying to think of how to say this. Go ahead if you got something.
No,
I'm looking.
If you can't say it, then sing it.
Me. I feel like 3D is. All right. When you're talking about, there's a lot more that carries into 3D. There's implications involved. Yeah. Like, this is a more serious...
It causes problems that you then have to rethink. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but like people want things to be 3D. Like you look at, and I'm glad that like Square Enix kind of cracked a little bit of a code on this. Whereas like if you look at, let's take an example. I think Secret of Mana is the game I'm thinking about, where they took the sprites and the 2D elements and they transferred it to 3D and they made 3D models. It's still fundamentally the same game, but it's 3D now, so clearly it's an upgrade. That's not true. It's literally not true. And like, yes, I think a lot of times they just feel compelled to make 3D models so people can take things seriously.
Final Fantasy VII.
Donkey Kong now, like, I think the only time Donkey Kong before Bonanza was like really 3D was 64. And I don't think they knew what to do with Donkey Kong in 3D. They just made a fucking banjo game with 5 different characters that each had weird abilities, and yet it was terrible. I hate Donkey Kong 64.
I've never played it, but for a reason of everyone tells me it's terrible.
Or like you take Wario World, and like the Wario 2D games are really, really great because every single one feels very different, but very consistent in how Wario is. Wario is consistent, but what you're doing is wacky and different per game and has a completely different pacing. Wario World, also developed by Treasure, is a fucking beat 'em up that gets stale 30 minutes in.
So I run the risk of being insulting here to 2D game development, and I don't think that it's easy. And I don't know, I will try and accentuate this metaphor. But you know when you're painting in your house, maybe if you paint, and you've got furniture on the wall, and there's always that temptation to just paint around the furniture, because the furniture is going to stay there. And if you do a really good job, it will look great. The problem with 3D games is suddenly you can move things. You go, wait a minute, there's no paint back here, and there should be paint back here. It's so much more difficult to curate every angle that someone's looking at, and therefore you open yourself up to problems. And early 3D had that so often of, well, that's bad. Well, this doesn't work. Well, the camera doesn't go there. Well, that sucks. Well, this made sense when it was linked. And there is a real craft to the curated view, of how you make the curated view perfect. But there are just so many issues of when you don't have pure control of the curated view anymore, when you give the curated view to the player and they just go look over there. You know, Gears of War, where they had to give a button to make you look at things because they knew that players wouldn't look at things. So to press Y and then the camera would go up and you'd go, oh, that's where the enemies are coming from.
They needed some yellow paint.
Yes, which goes back to Resident Evil. But yes.
I hear Resident Evil 9 fixed the yellow paint one.
Oh my God. 1, is it a problem? 2, kind of yes.
Oh, good. It's not a problem, but also it's good that they fixed it.
Yeah, it's more subtle, I guess. But it reminds you that subtle yellow paint is useful.
Well, I mean, this goes into Metroid Prime. I think we should just save it. Never mind. We'll just bookmark it back in the Metroid Prime thing. Metroid Prime does it very well.
Oh, Metroid Prime does everything very well.
Okay. Do you want to talk about it, or did you have other...
Let's talk about goddamn Metroid Prime. The game which I played Metroid Prime 4, and I was playing Metroid Prime 4, and I said to my good friend Joe, was Metroid Prime ever good? Because I can't imagine it being good. And I finished Metroid Prime 4, and I did not like it at all, and I looked at my Switch and I went, I shouldn't do this, it's financially irresponsible, but I'm going to buy the HD remaster of Metroid Prime and just play an hour of it to see if it's good. And then I played all of Metroid Prime.
That is so good. All right, let me do the intro. Metroid Prime is a 2002 game for the Nintendo GameCube. Unlike its contemporary, which was released the same day, Metroid Fusion, Prime is a departure for the franchise, with first-person gameplay and 3D exploration, coined as a first-person adventure. You play as the bounty hunter Samus Aran, investigating the planet Talon 4 and discovering what the dastardly space pirates want with this substance called Phazon. Steven, you've already made a little bit of a case for Metroid Prime. Do you have what are the feelings going into this conversation?
I want about shooting, because this is a thing that stood out for me in Metroid Prime as opposed to Metroid Prime 4. So Metroid Prime 4 controls worse than Metroid Prime, which is wild, because that's a 2025 game and this is a 2002 game, as you said.
Well, stop. I will say, have you ever played Prime before this on the GameCube?
I played it on the Wii, all right, and I played a bit of it with GameCube controls, and it sucks. But that's
I was gonna say, very important context here. The GameCube version does not have like two stick movement.
It doesn't.
Or like movement and then looking. You have to like press a button to then use the control stick to move Samus's like vision.
Yeah.
Whereas like in other updates, it's just the two sticks. I think this is a game that came out before first-person shooters were solidified into what they are. Is Metroid Prime a first-person shooter? No. Not really, because if you look at anything else, it is incredibly different. The game I felt this was most comparable to, and this is the one reason I really did wish Brendan was on here, was Soul Reaver, where I kept going back to this in my head of like, it's an exploration game first. It is a game where you're looking through an environment and seeing how many different perspectives you need to be able to go through something. And I remember a conversation had in the Soul Reaver episode with Murph and Brendan, where it was like, if it's an exploration game, why does Raziel not have a lot of movement upgrades? And I think Prime puts that a lot into perspective for me, because it would be really hard. Like, if you look at Super Metroid, a lot of the Super Metroid upgrades were movement based. There was like a big old dash. There was like a spark jump. There was the fucking
Space
what is
jump.
that? Screw attack. Like, and they had to reinterpret some of these elements into Prime, but otherwise, that's not the focus of the game. And I feel like a lot of people that play Metroid want like a fast experience, or they want something that's not necessarily the values that Prime has when in regards to the original Metroid, of taking it slow and going through things. I think one of the real tests of friction in this game is later on when you have to find the artifacts. I think a lot of people see this as like a lame fetch quest, whereas I saw it as an opportunity to go back and re-examine these rooms again.
It does show you how great the level design is. To return to it not being a shooter, which I think is key, I think one of the reasons I love Metroid Prime so much, if it reminds me, and it goes back to your point about controls, of a time in games where things weren't codified to the point of being homogenized, where shooting was another verb as opposed to the default verb of the first-person game. And when I played through GoldenEye properly a few years ago when it came out again on the Xbox and PlayStation, and I played it as a kid, but at friends' houses and just like dabbling in it, and GoldenEye really stuck out to me because shooting is just one of the things you do in that game, and it is more, it works like a melee weapon in most other games of you just kind of hit it and it just kind of attacks. It's not about aiming, and it's not about the fetishization of the gun as the gun is how you look at the world, which is really interesting for video games, that we are so often looking from the perspective of a gun, and the gun controls how we view worlds. Hopefully I'm making sense here. Whereas
it does, and especially for Samus, yes, there's some blaster upgrades, but they're not even like out and out upgrades.
Yeah,
they become color coded, and you have to switch between them to open doors or fight specific enemies.
It's one of the things that you do.
Just as powerful are the visors.
Yes.
To which you are able to see the enemies that are either invisible or some ghost shit. You know, like it's, or you just want to learn about the world. One of the things I really liked about this one, I'm a little bit of a lore guy. It's not like this game has fucking crazy ass lore, but I like creating a sense of the pirates, for instance. Before this, in other Metroid games, the pirates are aliens, man. I don't even know if they're pirates. They don't say "Arr, Steven." What's going on? Whereas this game, I'm like, I see what they want. I see what they're doing. I see the motivations. I see them talking about each other. I see them talking about Samus. They're like, apprehend Samus on sight. No, no fucking things. That's the hunters on the fucking planet. We need to take care of her now. I love that. That makes me feel like the hunter, the fucking monster that they're scared of. I love that. It's a great dynamic because otherwise this game is hostile.
Yes.
And it feels so fun. And to go back to maybe the Silent Hill 4 The Room, maybe the worst part of this game is the actual combat, but it's not that big of a deal because once you're done in the room, out of like the 3 enemies in it, you're back to re-experiencing everything else.
But yeah, because combat's linked to perspective, isn't it? That's why I like Lock-On in this way, because it's about what you're looking at, and this game is more interested in you looking at things than anything else, and the controls are skewed, especially the improved controls are skewed in that way. I mean, the brilliant thing about Metroid Prime is its level design. That's the thing that's always going to be spoken about most. And why it's so brilliant is because the thread of the campaign, so the way the story takes you through areas, it really intelligently finds new ways for you to look at areas or experience areas in different ways. So there is that at the beginning, it's really good at exploration gates where you can go, so you very logically, but you can still see where you could be going, but you don't feel funneled, you feel waiting to explore more. And then you open up a new area, but there are 2 areas you open up and you go, I don't know which one of these to go to. And they kind of both loop around to the same place, so it does that really great thing. And one of my favourite things in video games, is why I love the Dark Souls games, is entering an area and thinking, I shouldn't be here, and I'm going to keep pushing forwards to find out what happens if I go this way. And sometimes it's nothing, but sometimes it's this was a cool back alley into this area, or, there's an upgrade over here that I shouldn't get yet, but it knows I can get this yet, and that stuff's awesome. But the other example is the X-ray visor moment in this game, which is just incredible. Of you go through this zone, it's difficult, but you know what's going on, and then it cuts out the lights, you have to use the X-ray visor, and then you'll just retransfer it in the same space.
Visor.
Thermal visor, sorry. And you're just retransferring the same space, and it's this great game in the microcosm of what Metroid Prime is so good at, is making you play the same thing differently and look at it in different ways. And it literalizes that through the visor, but it's what the game is doing the whole time. You walk into a room, and the 5th time you walk into it, you are viewing it a different way, because you will have a different goal, you have a different power set, you have a different whatever, and the world design always supports that of, here's a room, been here 5 times, this 5th time, I'm thinking about that rather than this, and this blends back this way, and that's fantastic.
And, there are some elements in this game where I go like, man, this nails it. Like, this is the best use of the ball.
Yeah.
The morph ball. Like, I love the morph ball in this game.
It feels brilliant.
And, like, you could say that, like, in Super Metroid or in, like, normal Metroid, that maybe the morph ball was just, like, a way to duck or crouch and still move, basically. Whereas this one is, like, actually, like, you are moving around. And, like, with the spider tracks, you're, like, exploring different things. And, like, you are going around. It's utilizing the space in a really, really cool way. And there's momentum to it. There's times where there's, like, little skateboard ramps.
Yes.
And you gotta, like, build enough boosts to get over the thing. That's super fun. And it's utilizing the world. I love it.
And it's a great art design victory, because it's the Strange in a Strange Land art style. And I played Metroid Dread, and I really liked Metroid Dread, but a problem I have with Metroid Dread is it's too literal in its art design, of you only ever see it as a game, of it's clear that that's where I do this, where I do that, where I do this. Whereas Metroid Prime is so good at creating an immersive space that looks alien, and then you later learn that piece of alien geography is actually a thing that you interact with for gameplay. But it's very good at presenting a world that looks like a world that then you can interact with, as opposed for a world built around the power set of the player. It is ultimately that, but it's designed through immersive touches, clever immersive touches. Even the wiping the rain away from the visor absolutely rules. It's just got all these wonderful touches.
Oh, dude, when you like shoot in a certain way where it's like too close, and then you see Samus's reflection, and then like sometimes you see your reflection on the screen as well. You're like, oh my gosh, I am Samus. The level of immersion is incredible, and it's not realistic.
No.
I think oftentimes when we look at what immersion is, we mistake because like realism is immersive, right? But like those are not necessarily synonymous. And I think Metroid Prime does a really good example of being alien and still having that sort of you are Samus Aran element to it.
Well, it goes back to perspective. For me, again, the whole game is perspective. It is about placing you in a zone where you look and you think and you traverse. And for that reason, I'm constantly playing Metroid Prime and thinking, is this the best game ever made? Genuinely. It's just the way it flows is perfect. The way it now feels is perfect. It's just such a satisfying loop of rewarding discovery, and just the act of playing is great. Some of the bosses are annoying. The giant space pirate sucks.
I had a lot of difficulty. I always have difficulty on it with the mining colony. Like when you're going in and you're just consistently hitting the space pirates, and there's like little stretches where you're not getting the save points.
Yeah, it's hard.
It could be tough.
And I'm bad at video games, so it's hard for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the easiest time I had is when I played Prime Hack. I will say Prime Hack on the Dolphin, that's basically mouse keyboard controls, but like fully fluid. But also that's a really good example of seeing why making it too easy or too standardized ruins a little bit of the experience. Do I like Prime Hack? Yeah, that's a neat way to play the game, but it is also very, very different. I kind of don't want to play Doom, or, you know what I mean? This is not the same game.
You have to work out the repeatable strategy to deal with things. It's I need to freeze them and then missile them in that way. And it becomes even like, Stalker is basically my favourite game, and Resident Evil 9 got me in this mode sometimes where it's I'm going to enter this room and I need to exactly deploy this strategy, and if I do it perfectly, I'm going to get through. And that's why I like thinking, and that mining colony puts you in that level, being like, no, it punishes you. If you mess up, you're punished. You're back to the beginning. It goes, but I can do this right. I can sneak out.
Yep.
And if I get a bit greedy, I'm just going to die. I like that.
Yep. And I like the worlds. I feel like this is a really good example. If you look at the 2D games before this, they're different colors, right? Yeah. And this is not a knock on the games. I think Super Metroid still has great environments and great variety in environments, but this has a winter biome, a lava biome, has mining stuff, has different details in the environments that are really appreciated. I like Chozo ruins. I like the poison and the plant stuff. It all feels very like alive.
I think a smart transition it made from 2D to 3D is knowing what to carry over and what wouldn't work straight away because it would take away in 3D. Metroid and Super Metroid are kind of horror games, and Metroid Prime is not a horror game. It is not a world of fear. It's a world of hostility, but it wants you to have downtime and splendor because it understands that you can have it be horror themed in 2D exploration because it doesn't affect you the same way that horror theme and 3D exploration do, because it's not purely mechanical, it's more actually immersive, and that would have been too much. Later Metroid Prime games lean into the horror successfully, and I've not played 2 for reasons I'll explain later, but I hear that 2 leans into it a bit more, but the first run through I think really benefits from going, this isn't the time to do that yet. And there are sequences that, like the thermal sequence, is kind of horror reflected, but it knows what to keep and what to ditch for the good of the core of it.
I absolutely agree. This goes back into what values do you take from this thing to be able to adapt properly. And Prime just does it well. I feel like also Ridley in this. Ridley's scary. He barely shows up, but when he's there, you're like, oh fuck, it's Ridley.
That's a fun game. That's a fun fight as well. It's a really fun fight. And that last sequence, which is so Half-Life 1 coded, is does get into the it's now being overrun and it's kind of scary, and it knows how to. It's got all the right cards, and it's the art of playing the cards correctly. And so many games are just like, look at my cards, look at all my cards, look at all these cards. These are such great cards. And this is
I have never made the Half-Life 1 connection. This game does feel like if Zen was good.
Yeah, it does. It very much does. Did they make Zen good in Black Mesa? I never got to the end. I played up until...
They did make Zen good in Black Mesa. I'm just saying, like, you definitely see those elements here. Yeah, for sure. How do you feel about the artifacts? The sort of late game fetch quest.
All right, if I was playing it at the time, I'd get super into it, and I can really academically explain why it's great, because it is great. All right, I'm going to separate. I get a bit reviewer brained because I've since I was 17, I've been writing about almost every game that I play, so I'm so tuned to going through, and therefore I really sanctify this experience of you should just play through. And sometimes I step out of that and go, actually, engaging with the community is part of playing a game, and that's the way that games are not made for reviewers. They are made for players. And I actually don't mind, and I like this with the Resident Evil games, I use walkthroughs for most of them, because I feel that they are designed in a way that they want you to engage them on that level sometimes, and they reward that. So I don't think it's a knock against Prime that I get to the end and I go, I'm going to look out what these artifacts are. I also found many of them on the way, and that was really satisfying. And I don't know how you design this game without finding one accidentally feels so brilliant. And that brilliance needs to be maintained.
Spontaneously
exactly.
For sure. Yes.
It needs to maintain that, and I think that's the way of doing that. And I can totally forgive the silliness of now get all these things, and it does separate that last moment of the game quite nicely. And you know what? You've played so much game. Stop. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's also like I don't need. I think a lot of times they're like, I just want to beat this game as soon as possible so I can say I beat Metroid.
Like Resident Evil 9.
And I mean this like in a broad sense for everybody. Like when they play games, there's a point in time where you're like, I want this game to be done. I want to beat it. But this game kind of asks you, no, you need to re-examine these areas.
Yeah.
You weren't looking at them good enough. You need to go back and look. This game also reminds me a little bit of like a Mr. or Riven in some senses. Okay. Not necessarily in full-on puzzles, but the sort of requiring you to go back through things. I think some people find backtracking gross.
I love backtracking.
But this is, to me, I think backtracking is very important in a Metroidvania. I think having like that little loop of, all right, what have I not seen in this room? Like, what am I not paying attention to? And this goes back to the yellow paint thing. And I will say, in fairness, this game is really hard to 100%. I don't think I will ever 100% this game. But that being said, like a guide is one of the things to help with that, and there's no shame in that. And I don't think the game is necessarily bad about how it does it. A lot of times the missile upgrades or like the health upgrades are in like really cool like small mini game type things where you're like, oh, that's really neat, like finding different ways to turn the power on to open a gate so you can get a health power up. Stuff like that is so fun.
Nintendo is so good at that, of making the getting the collectible the fun part of the collectible.
Yes. Yep. And it's less about like, oh, where is it? It's more like, how do I get there?
There's only one moment in this game that I was just like, that's ridiculous. And it's a very specific treasure artifact that's just in a pillar. And there's nothing that indicates you can blow up that one pillar. And that's the only one pillar you can blow up. And you don't
does it not? I don't remember. Does it not reflect on the scanner? That you could like super bomb it or something?
No, it's just this random. In the middle of a room, you can just shoot it, and it blows up, and it's in there. And maybe I was being dense, maybe it did show up, but that was the one moment I was like, okay, well, that's silly. But apart from that, I have no issue with the fetch quest thing. And yeah, I mean, the completing games thing is really important, because that's my Resident Evil 9 anecdote again, of I was starting to not like that game as much, because I was powering through it, because I was in this brain of, oh, this game's wrapping up and we're done. And the game was actually saying, we're not wrapping up, we're starting up again, and you need to reacquaint yourself. I think the first time on this podcast, I talked about Fez, which is one of my favourite games. And Fez is a masterpiece because you are playing one game, and then later you realise you were actually playing a different game the whole time. And Metroid Prime is kind of doing that. Of you go, these areas exist for a campaign, and then it goes, actually, these areas exist to hide something, and you weren't thinking about that at that point, and you could have been doing so.
Yes.
And I like that about it. It's this area does not just exist for this one purpose, it also exists for this purpose. And now come back to it, think about that. That story is over now. Come back to this world, it's fun to get round, it's never not fun to get round. There's always more to uncover, and it's all there. You can get it. You've got all the tools, find it.
And I also feel like this game has a little bit of a fanfic thing with the Phazon, where it's like, oh, this new substance that we've never heard of before.
Yeah.
I still think it's done really well. I think
like
Metroid Prime is like a really cool monster.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yes. Because I love the literalization of the title.
Yeah.
So Bioshock Infinite is a game I don't like very much because, of course I don't, because anyone that's spoken to me knows that that's kind of a cliched opinion I'd have. But one thing I like about it is the moment you go, oh, it's called that because of this. I love, we're so used to throwaway titles of franchise, adjective, noun, whatever. Here's a really evocative sounding word to put after something. The amount of, I just played for Resident Evil Revelations, the amount of blah revelations there are. Are there any revelations in Revelations 1 or 2? No, not really. Not really at all. But you play for Metroid Prime, you go, oh yes, it's like Super Metroid, whatever. It's Metroid, but it's Prime this time because
Prime
you think
Prime is super, and you're like, yeah, that's chill.
Yeah,
and then you're like, no, this creature.
This is the Prime Metroid. Yes.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, absolutely love that.
Oh man. This is my favorite Metroid game, and I always feel like I'm on the defense for saying it because I feel like maybe people want perfection, right? They're like, I look at Super Metroid and, this is so meticulous done, blah, blah, blah,
oh, come on. The Mother Brain fight in Super Metroid absolutely sucks.
But to me, I'm okay if the level design is maybe slightly worse. I wouldn't even say it's slightly worse. I just think it is different. And I like Metroid Prime the way it is. Totally. And also going into this released at the same exact time as Fusion. Fusion also had different values than Metroid 1, 2, and Super. These games wanted to be different. They knew Metroid could not just do this all over again every time. Nintendo does look at things and go, how can we make this different? And also, to be fair, this is a complete departure because this was an American studio making this. We haven't talked about it at all, but Retro as a Texas-based developer and everyone in it, where it was like, we trust you. They trusted this development team to make this game, and it worked out in spades. It became legendary,
I think that's why it feels like, it feels weird to say that Metroid is my favourite Nintendo IP. And I hate myself for saying IP. Please forgive me. But that's because it's Nintendo not feeling like Nintendo. It just feels like an accident that this came out on these systems, that there's another world where Metroid Prime was a PS2 game, and that makes a bit more sense to me because it fits along that catalogue. But then I forget that the GameCube was being really interesting at that point, and Nintendo have really controlled their image post GameCube and a bit part way into the GameCube, and you forget about Resident Evil 4 and Beautiful Joe and Metroid Prime and Resident Evil 0 of and remake of we are trying some things that are M-rated or whatever and action. That's cool to me. To go back to the artifact hunt for a second, one thing that just clicked with me is people complain about it, but if it didn't do that, another complaint would be true of this game, which is true of almost every other Metroid, which is there is a point in every Metroid where you get all of your powers, and then you just go fight the final boss, and it goes, well, there's no real point. When you get to your zenith, there's no point to go back over the map. So Dread is maybe the worst for this, because the last boss of Dread is a tactile challenge of how good are your reflexes. So having more missiles is not going to make that better for you, because you're only firing them in a set amount of time. So when you're at your most powerful, it says you can go around the map more, But you go, well, the final boss is over here. Why do I go around the map? The final boss is over there, and I don't need to go around the map. And Metroid Prime forces you to go around the map, as opposed to just saying,
I agree.
No, go find the final boss.
I'm not going to lie. One of my biggest problems with Metroid, generally, and this is not a real problem, this is one of those nitpick problems, is I don't feel that empowered when my missiles go from 110 to 115. Right?
Yeah.
And like, that's not a knock against the game. I feel like there is something substantial and cumulative about consistently getting those missile upgrades. There is a difference between 115 and 20, for sure. But that being said, forcing you to go back and re-examine locations makes me not want to just beat the game.
And it makes a missile upgrade feel potent, because you go, oh, cool, I got a missile out of this. I wasn't even meaning to do that. I was poking at this corner and that was there. It makes it feel like a cool discovery as opposed to checkbox. Because there is a big powerbomb problem with the Metroid games. Is it the smart bomb? Where you get that way too late in every Metroid game. I think it's like Zero Mission where you get it like exactly at the end and you go, well, this
like,
just
what have I missed here? Let's just bomb this fucking screen and see.
This just did one thing. You didn't give this to me early enough for this to mean anything. It might as well have not been in the game. And Dread is quite similar with, well, you give this late. Why do I even care about it? So Metroid Prime is good at, okay, you've got all your tools. Now play the actual game for a while and go out there and just experiment with them, as opposed to, there's a boss, go find it.
I love this game. I also love the ending. This goes back to the sort of like, I like Samus taking off her helmet and just like looking out, and that's it. It's a little solemn. It's very like, this game is colorful and it's vibrant, but it's also a little dead, and I feel like she's tired. I don't know. Maybe you put a lot into it because you just see her. I'm like, she's tired. I'm tired, and we're just sort of getting over. Or also we feel like this is not over with.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things about the later titles, spoiler alert, is like they're also about Metroid Prime, like the creature. The Phazon doesn't go away, and like this series means something. I don't know what Prime 4 does, but like Prime 3 was like a good end to a trilogy.
Yeah, I like Prime 3. I've played 1, 3, and 4. I played these first on the trilogy on Wii U because you could just buy it, and then my Wii U broke. And you know me, Brogan, I'm a coward. I'm not very good at video games. I played through Metroid Prime, and I thought it was amazing. And then a good friend of mine, Daniel, told me that Metroid Prime 2 was actually really hard. And I went, I don't want to play that. That sounds difficult. So I played 3 instead. And I liked 3. And then I never got round to playing 2, and my Wii U broke. So I've just never played 2. I know I really want to play 2. I tried to get Prime Hack working, but I'm a Luddite and I couldn't get it working. So one day you'll need to help me to get that to work.
2 is for sickos, I will say.
I can be a sicko,
I think
though.
if we ever bring Brendan back on for a Metroid, we'll do Echoes and sort of have it be like a thing. Because like, I feel like 2 is definitely worth talking about. And also, this is very important for how 4 looks and feels. I don't know how 4 looks and feels. I could just tell by trailers or whatever that like 2 and 3 are very different games from Prime 1 in many different ways, not just the horror aspect, but there's a lot of detail aspects. There's something simple about Metroid Prime in a good way, I would say. This feels like a fundamental type game.
Yeah. I want to play 2. I really want to play 2. Do you know what annoys me? I own Nintendo Switch. That doesn't annoy me. What annoys me is they're bringing Prime 2 to the GameCube service on Switch 2. My Switch could play GameCube games. It just could.
Yeah.
What? I don't want to buy a Switch 2 to play Metroid Prime 2.
Or pay $20 to play Pokemon
We're not
Red.
talking about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I say?
You'll get me. I'll get told off again. I don't want to get told off.
I agree with you, Steven.
I know you do.
I
I'm
do
right.
think we're gonna do that, but also we deserve better. I agree. I will say the remake, like talking about the actual remake real quick, the remake is really, really good. This latest playthrough was on the HD remake, and like it is one of those where the words I've heard before and is what I agree with is it looks how you think you remember it. and that is possibly one of the better, like, quote unquote direct upgrade remakes. It doesn't fuck anything up in art design. It's just straight up, let's just make it look better.
Hell yeah.
It, like, the particle effects look cool. The sounds are the same. Bada bing, bada boom.
This is how good Metroid Prime is. Yesterday, I was stood in a shop holding a copy of Metroid Prime for GameCube in my hand, and I almost bought it. Even though I just bought Metroid Prime again on Switch. I own it technically on Wii U. I've played it twice, and all of my games at the moment, because I have a child, are in a box in the outhouse. I can't see any of my games. They're inaccessible to me. And I would have bought it. It's 15 quid. Well, I could find that cheap elsewhere. The only thing that's me buying it was I was with my child at the time, and the queue at the cashier was long, so I just looked at it and went, I'll put you down. But I just want to own you. I just want to own you, GameCube copy of Metroid Prime. I want to have it in my house, in a box. I don't care. I just want this to be a possession that I own.
I would say if there are 3 GameCube games you gotta have, if you had a GameCube and you're on an Uncharted island that has a CRT TV and a plugged in and some electricity, Metroid Prime, Super Smash Bros. Melee, and like
Resident Evil 4.
Resident Evil 4. Those are the 3 GameCube games you need. You're cooking. You don't gotta worry about nothing else.
What about Resident Evil Remake?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, for real. Yeah.
What about the Wind
Top
Waker?
5. Okay, now we're just naming GameCube games.
Yeah, but the Wind Waker is really good.
Pikmin would also be up there. But Prime is top 3. Prime is like for sure going on the island.
Top 1 probably.
Top 1.
Yeah.
You heard it. I agree. I'm not disagreeing.
And then Remake is top 2. And then the copy of Wind Waker that I own that's also got Ocarina of Time in it, and that's a thing that's in my house.
Oh, I think it's got Master Quest on it. Oh, that's a good game.
Yeah, I own that. Oh. In your face.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Do you have Thousand Year Door?
No.
That doesn't need to go on the island. Steven!
I have Dinosaur Planet.
Oh, that's fucking sick as hell. That is an interesting transition.
Sorry, Star Fox Adventures. Sorry.
No, but for real, Steven, thank you for joining us. Do you have any final thoughts on Prime?
I just think it's superlative. It's. I play too many video games, and I feel guilty about it sometimes because I get in my own head about academic weight of things because I'm a very insecure person. And I go, I should be reading all this great literature that links to my job and whatever, and I should be watching the great art films. And then I play Metroid Prime and I go, this tactile feeling in my hands is why I love video games, and this is what I get from this. And it just reaffirms my engagement in this as a medium. It's exactly what I want to go. This is just it, man. This is it.
Sometimes a game is worth playing and you shouldn't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
And Prime is worth playing. Do you have anything to promote?
No.
Well, that's easy.
Listen to Quick Save still. You just listen to me and Joe talk about that. We'll talk about Resident Evil 9. He'll play it as well. So you can listen.
Have you already recorded that?
No, we need to record it this week because the day we usually record was the day that Resident Evil 9 came out. So there was no point in recording a podcast because we'd go, well, I didn't play this game yet, but...
I'm going to message you during my Resident Evil 9 podcast.
Oh, please do. I do hope you love it. And I hope that I'm not
I think I will. I would message Murph, but he's in Antarctica, and I feel like I would spoil things. I think Murph is going to play 9 probably right when he gets back. Yeah. And that will be a conversation. I think he's going to be excited. But until then, Steven, thank you so much. I think we're playing out.
We're playing out.
Yeah.
Visors down.